evening. Thank you for joining us for this live discussion. I'm Britt Huff, Mayor of the City of Rolling Hills Estates, and we are all saddened to have been brought together here tonight under these circumstances. The murder in our community this last week has not only angered and shaken our community of Rolling Hills Estates, but the entire Palos Verdes Peninsula. The City of Rolling Hills Estates has always placed a high priority on public safety. This murder has been the central focus for all of us for the last few days. And I thank the LA County Sheriff Department for their efforts and the attention to this crime. Our staff has been in constant contact with them to track the progress of this investigation. The city has organized this live event, Facebook event, as a way to reach as many people as possible and to provide transparency in the investigation process. We have brought our city manager, Doug Pritchard, together with leadership from the Sheriff's Department to provide an update directly to residents about this crime and to answer questions. Finally, I want to personally offer my condolences to the family. It was a senseless, horrible tragedy, and our community stands ready to support you in any way that we can. So let me now ask Doug Pritchard, our city manager, to add some additional logistical comments.
Thank you, Mayor Huff. As you know, our community is reeling from the shock of this crime, and I want to thank the department for being here tonight. They will provide as much information as they can with respect to the investigation, given the constraints of an ongoing criminal matter. Before we get into the heart of the meeting and the discussion, I'd like to give out a few in the way of logistical suggestions. If you're having a hard time hearing us, please turn up the volume on your device. We will try to do our best to speak loudly, and hopefully you will be able to hear us clearly. Second, in the comments section, you will find a link with tips on how to get the best viewing experience on your end. So please follow that link and read the instructions. Third, we will be monitoring the comments section for your questions, and we will answer as many as possible in the time allowed. Fourth, I want to encourage you to share this live video now with your friends and family who are on the Hill. We welcome the engagement of the community and the sharing of this information directly from the experts from the Sheriff's Department. Finally, we plan to wrap this up at about 7 p.m. We'll start with some brief statements from the Sheriff's Department and then open it up to the questions from the online audience. Afterward, this video will be available on the Rolling Hills Estates Facebook page so everyone can share it and view it later. So that covers the logistics. My last comment is that our local police department, the Sheriff's Department of Los Angeles County, who serves and protects our peninsula, is an important part of the fabric of this community. Sheriff Jim McDonnell has personally assured me that this case has the highest priority and that the investigators are working diligently to solve this crime. I want to thank the members of the department who are here. I really appreciate Captain Dan Berenger and his dedication to the community, and am thankful that he is our local police chief. So I will now turn it over to Captain Dan Berenger, and he will provide some introductions to the department personnel are here and provide some additional information at this point. Captain?
Thank you, Doug. I'm Captain Dan Berenger, Lomita Sheriff Station. Lomita Sheriff Station provides police services to 4 contract cities of Rolling Hills Estates, Rancho Palos Verdes, Rolling Hills, the city of Lomita, and unincorporated areas of the peninsula of Westfield and Academy Hill, as well as unincorporated San Pedro. Before I begin, I'll make some introductions. This is Commander Jim Wolak, South Patrol Division. South Patrol Division is comprised of 6 separate sheriff stations that he oversees. And to my other side here is Lieutenant Rodney Moore, Homicide Bureau. And Homicide Bureau is the investigative unit body tasked with investigating this crime. They're decentralized, so we don't investigate homicides at the station level. The men and women of Homicide Bureau are do this every day of the year. That's their only crime they investigate is homicides, and they're very good at what they do, and we have the utmost confidence in them. So that being said, let me begin. There's been some concern in the community regarding our initial response that a lot of information wasn't put out. Our deputies responded to a call of a person injured in a vehicle in the parking structure at the Promenade in Rolling Hills Estates. Initially, for several hours, we had no suspect information, no witnesses, and we were on a fact-finding mission, canvassing the area for witnesses, video footage, and whatnot. During that time, a lot of people learned about the crime on the news, and there's been concern that we didn't lock down the school or shopping center. As we progressed through this initial stages of the investigation, we made an assessment, and we found no credible information that the suspect remained in the area. So we made the call not to lock down the schools or the shopping center and create more fear. I understand as a parent, myself, that many parents were upset that their loved ones and children were getting out of school, shortly after this crime occurred, and the thought of a person running around that committed such a heinous crime could still be out there. It's something we will take as a learning lesson, and we will consider it in the future for other types of incidents, just how important it is to get information out there immediately. But absent any facts at all we had to give the public, we did not immediately start putting out information because we didn't have anything to give, and we didn't want to create fear in the community. And I believe we'll start taking questions.
Unless you have comments from the commander or the homicide investigator, I think that would probably be very helpful at this point. Get the commander to maybe express how the top brass are feeling.
Sure. Well, on behalf of Sheriff Jim McDonald, I want to express our deepest condolences to the family. I want to let the community know that the sheriff has committed the appropriate amount of resources to bring this to a quick resolution, and that is what we're hoping for. Once again, my name is Jim Wallach, and I'm one of two commanders in the South Division. South Division represents 6 stations, and we assist the chief of South Division, Kelly Frazier, in managing those 6 stations. We give the support to the captains. Lamita Station, with the 4 contract cities, has plenty of resources. We have extra patrols out here, along with a lot of the folks out here may be not seen, but just the community needs to be reassured that we are out here for them.
Thank you. Since this crime occurred, the Sheriff's Department Homicide Bureau has deployed lots of resources in order to help get this perpetrator into custody. They're working tirelessly to find this individual, and with the aid and support of my supervisors and community members, community leaders, we have developed multiple leads that detectives are currently following up on. We are hoping to find leads that will lead us to the identity of this individual. As of this moment, we do not know a motive for this crime, nor do we have one particular suspect identified. Early on in the investigation, we did identify a person of interest. His information or picture was distributed to various news outlets in efforts to locate that individual. With the help of community members, he was located less than 24 hours later. That individual was detained and subsequently arrested for an unrelated charge. While in custody, he was interviewed by homicide detectives, and pursuant to a warrant, his personal property was examined for any evidence which may be present. At the time of the interview, there was insufficient evidence to link that individual to the crime, and he was not charged. He was eventually released from the Sheriff's Department custody, and he is currently in a suitable facility obtaining appropriate care from providers.
Thank you. Unless there are any other updates or information that you guys can share at the moment, we'll go directly to some questions. So with that, I'll just ask them in the order in which they're appearing on the screen. Now, they have specifically to do with some of the details of the crime and the investigation. So as much as you can share, please do so, and if you cannot, please make that clear. So the first question is, do the sheriffs believe the victim was killed while her car was parked in the parking structure?
There are specific things related to the crime we just don't want to discuss at this time.
Okay, so that question is one that you cannot answer because of the ongoing investigation, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, are there security cameras in the parking garage?
There are surveillance cameras inside of the parking garage.
We've obtained that video.
I believe, Lieutenant, that you said that the person of interest has been released from the sheriff's custody, and that's the next question, as to whether the person has been released and or whether that person is out in the community.
Presently, he is in a facility obtaining treatment. So he is not in the Sheriff's Department's custody. However, he is not in the general public at this time.
Thank you. With respect to the initial response, was the library, which is just a block away, canvassed at the time?
I can't answer that specifically. As far as the witness canvasses went, my deputies were going business to business at the Promenade as well as Peninsula Center on the other side of the street, but I couldn't answer for certain that the library was checked.
I'm sure there's a lot of concern there because after school, many of the students use the library for studying. What security measures are being put in place at the mall? I'm not sure anybody can answer that question. I will say that I have spoken with Jonathan Alpert, the mall manager, and that he has indicated to me that they are generating a detailed and thorough response to the situation and trying to come up with a methodology that will ensure the safety of the community while at the mall. He discussed with me such things as additional cameras, longer hours for the security personnel, and they will be generating their own formal response at some time in the future on their own.
And if Doug, I could chime in there, I've directed my deputies to have a visible presence there. We normally do. It's a community center for the entire peninsula, and my deputies frequent it, but it's important that we have a strong presence and let the community know we're there to keep the community safe.
Next question is there any information on a potential motive for the crime?
The motive is unknown at this time.
Do we know if the attack occurred inside the car or inside the parking structure, or is that something you can answer?
We're not releasing where we believe the crime occurred as far as inside or outside of the vehicle, but we do believe that it occurred inside of the parking structure.
Do we know if the victim was robbed?
That is unknown.
How can the department allay concerns of the community that there is a suspect still at large? Maybe Dan, that's a good one for you. Yeah, you talked about additional presence.
we have additional presence while we haven't named a suspect at this time. As I said earlier, there's no credible information. The suspect remains in the area, and we will continue to diligently work to bring this person to justice. As I said, the deputies care deeply about this community, and it's on all of our minds, and we will be patrolling the area diligently.
And in addition to that, the sheriff has provided additional resources, including support staff from detectives from our supporting headquarters division. So the station will be receiving additional resources.
That's good to hear, and I think maybe one of the things that will help allay the fears of the community is the transparent and continued dissemination of information. I will say that the city's website has been updated to include a page specifically devoted to this crime, and every day we will be posting updates on there. We may not always have new information for the public, but we will at least be on a daily basis offering the community some additional information as it becomes available. Next question is really a good one. It's a two-part question. Are you working with other agencies in the investigation? Maybe that's the first question that you guys can address at this point.
We do work with, and it's normal in homicide investigations, we work with other agencies, and I do anticipate in the future that we will be pulling in more outside agencies and utilizing them as resources in different areas of this investigation.
Is there a database that the department shares with the surrounding agencies?
For investigative purposes, there are databases that we do share, and we will determine at a specific time which databases what would best suit investigating this incident.
Would you consider the interagency cooperation the norm?
Yes, when dealing with crimes of this nature, it's very common for us to work with other agencies.
The second part of that question is, what can the community do while the case is under investigation? And maybe Dan or Jim, that's something that you guys can address in terms of the public taking care of their own safety or providing information. Maybe there's some things you can comment on.
Absolutely. I ask everyone, and not just to this incident, but to be vigilant. If you see anything suspicious, to notify the sheriff's department. And of course, if there was anyone that witnessed anything out of the ordinary before this crime occurred in the area, you can contact our homicide bureau at 323-890-5500, and we'll repeat that number later in the broadcast.
This is a very close-knit community. People know when things are out of place. They know when someone is a stranger to the community. Anything at all that somebody could have seen that day that was out of place or seemed suspicious to them, we encourage them to call our homicide bureau.
And I will say, one of the things that the entire peninsula has done over the last 12 to 24 months is install what are called ALPR cameras. They read license plates as cars pass by, and those have proven to be very helpful in solving a number of crimes, outstanding warrants. So the type of surveillance that the community is interested in has been put in place by the cities, and it's hoped that they can at least provide a level of assurance that the cities and the department are a workplace we all know and love. The next question again has to do with the schools, and the question is, why were the schools not locked down prior to the person of interest being arrested? And I know you commented on that a little earlier, Captain, but perhaps you can restate that in case the viewers weren't here for that moment.
Yes, we had, at the time of the initial response, we had no information on any suspect or direction of travel or vehicle, anything whatsoever to put out there. or any indication that the suspect remained in the area. And we continually assess that during the investigation in the early stages. And the decision was made not to lock down the schools and create more fear and create pandemonium of parents trying to get to the area to pick up their children when we had this investigation unfolding and trying to gather facts.
Thank you. The next question has to do with the time of death of the victim. Has it been determined exactly when that time of death was, and was it close to the time that the incident was first reported?
We have a good idea of what the time of death was. However, we're not releasing that information.
The next question is was the victim a resident of RPV? And I believe the answer is yes.
That is correct. That's been verified. She was a victim of Rancho Palos Verdes, a resident of Rancho Palos Verdes.
The next question again has to do with the initial investigation, and that has to do with what steps the department took in going door to door to each of the businesses after the crime was reported, either to provide some notice or to seek information.
Well, that's protocol for any investigation of this nature, and we brought in resources from other patrol stations as well, so we could conduct that canvass. Those things take time. Initial concern is gathering information on a suspect and preserving the crime scene for the homicide investigators. But in the first hours of the investigation, that did take place.
The next question again has to do with evidence, and was any of the victim's belongings taken that you were aware of?
We're not commenting on what may have been taken or not taken at this time.
The other question related to that is whether or not the knife has been recovered.
A weapon has not been recovered.
The question again about the surveillance cameras in the mall, is there any footage of the suspect, and do we know if the mall cameras were working, and have they provided anything helpful?
They were operating. However, we're not disclosing what we have viewed from those cameras.
As we can all tell here, it's difficult for the department to provide any detailed information on the investigation. We all want to know, and there's a real sense on the community that the more we are able to learn and understand about the investigation or the details of the attack, that it may provide some better understanding. And we know that ultimately those will come out as the investigation continues and comes to hopefully a quick conclusion. I know the public is probably as frustrated as any of us with respect to the inability to gain that information for themselves at this point, but we do understand the sensitive nature of a criminal investigation. So the next question has to do with whether or not there is an ongoing threat, and perhaps maybe I can at least start that discussion, and the folks down the line can maybe comment as well. At this point, and at the initial report from the sheriffs, it was our understanding that this appeared to be an isolated incident, and that there was no reason to believe that there was or is an ongoing threat to the community at large. That's our understanding here at the city, and I'm hoping that the Sheriff's Department personnel can confirm that.
Exactly right. Without speculating on the ongoing threat, we have no credible information at this point to believe that that person responsible remains in the area at large as a threat.
Yeah, I will say that the peninsula is an extremely safe community. However, we still need our residents to be diligent. We need them to be vigilant. We need them to report things that they see out of place. We cannot do our job without the community's and the residents' help.
And in fact, maybe this is an opportunity for the mayor to comment on our Neighborhood Watch programs and the way that people can collectively provide for their own security. Mayor?
Well, and this is true. We, in the last years, have been attempting to revitalize our Neighborhood Watch program and our Neighborhood Council to increase communication and especially encourage all neighborhoods to develop that contact among neighbors, to keep an eye out for any unusual circumstances in their neighborhood, especially at a time like this.
And I would comment that the staff member at the city who coordinates the Neighborhood Watch program is Alexa Davis. She can be reached via email or by phone. And if anyone is interested in creating a new Neighborhood Watch or finding out if there is a Neighborhood Watch within their own community, homeowners association, or block, that Alexa can help point them in the right direction. And Captain, who is it at the station that coordinates the Neighborhood Watch?
Sergeant Doug Shive would be the main point of contact. We work in partnership with all the cities, all the contract cities on the peninsula, and as we stated earlier, the level of support we have for the public safety mission from the city councils on all the cities has been tremendous, and we enjoy a great relationship and teamwork on that front.
Okay, let me follow up on a question that was asked a second ago, and that has to do with the presumed isolated nature of the crime. And is there anything that you have in your understanding of the crime itself that would lead to the conclusion that it was an isolated incident and not something that would be more broadly dangerous or concerning to the community?
Rodney, could you speak to that from the investigation standpoint? It's a difficult question to answer. Like I said, I don't want to speculate as to the nature of the suspect still out there, but it's very difficult to say for sure.
Correct. And like the captain stated, the motive for this particular crime is unknown. And however, we do not have any information which will point us in the direction that there is an ongoing threat to the community. We have developed multiple leads, and there was physical evidence located at scene. I am unable to comment on what that is exactly. However, that part of the investigation is ongoing. We believe that some of the information we have obtained is positive, and that leads us to believe that this incident wasn't a random act or there's a threat to the community, an ongoing threat.
Thank you. The next question again has to do with the investigation. So again, we apologize if there are questions that are being asked that can't be answered directly, but I will ask it anyway. Is there any evidence to suggest that the victim knew the killer?
I'm not ready to comment on that at this point.
How was the victim discovered? Was it reported by someone in the community?
It was reported by someone in the community who located the victim at scene.
A lot of these questions are starting to sound very similar in theme to the question of the either randomness of the act or the safety of the community given the possible concern about this not being an isolated incident. So if I can maybe just have you guys comment again one more time about whether or not there is anything in your investigation to this point that would lead you to the conclusion that there is an ongoing threat to the community.
There has been nothing conclusive at this point to give us that indication. As I said, I can't speculate on all the possibilities, but we're comfortable in saying that the community is a safe place, and we will continue to work diligently to maintain that feeling of safety.
Is there anything in the investigation that would lead you to the conclusion that the suspect is either still somewhere in the community, if there is any suspect, or not within the community?
As I stated before, there's no indication either way, but nothing has led us down the road that the suspect remains in the community at this point.
And at this point, there is no one specific suspect that is being pursued exclusively. You have a number of leads that you're pursuing, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. There are lots of questions coming again about the mall security and the cameras. I'll ask the question again. Was the crime caught on camera? Do we know that?
We're not commenting on
Okay.
what was discovered on surveillance videos.
Do we know when the last time the victim was seen alive?
She was seen on surveillance cameras inside of the promenade.
We've already talked about this a little bit, the steps that are being taken to keep the community safe, and I will just reiterate what was said earlier by the department, and that's that additional resources are being provided to the Lomita station, and that the sheriffs are providing additional patrols up in the commercial area as well as throughout the peninsula. Captain, can you comment any further on any of those actions that are being taken at this point?
Other than what's been said, no. Investigative resources are coming to Homicide Bureau for the stations to assist with the investigation. And as I said, we are conducting extra patrols in the area and have that visible presence. I myself and my lieutenant walked through the mall the following day, hours after the crime, and spoke with community members to comfort them and let them know we were there.
Thank you. Next question, when or do we know when the coroner's report will be released?
It is unknown when it will be released.
Is the department aware of any homeless encampments or youth gangs in the area?
There are a number of homeless, I would not say a high number of homeless, and definitely no youth gangs in the area. Homelessness affects all our communities, and as we stated earlier, we don't have any definitive evidence pointing to a certain person or type of person that was responsible for the crime.
Oh, there's a great question. Is the person of interest who was taken into custody still a person of interest?
Yes, no individual has been ruled out at this time.
We understood that the victim was last seen alive on surveillance cameras in the mall. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. What can anybody? This is a great question for the whole table here, and that is, what can people do who live here on the peninsula or the city to help with the investigation?
As I stated earlier, remain vigilant. Report any suspicious activity you see that you feel suspicious. Call the sheriff's station, Lomita station. And again, if you were in the area that day and witnessed anything or saw anything unusual, please notify Homicide Bureau.
Once again, this is a close-knit community. People talk. People see things that they may not think is important at the time. But if somebody was at the mall or in that area at the time, and they saw anything that could be beneficial to the investigation, we ask that you either call Lomita Station or Homicide Bureau directly.
Thank you. And again, Neighborhood Watch, knowing your neighbors and being able to understand when there's something that looks out of the ordinary. And don't be afraid ever to contact the sheriff's department. That's what they're there for. The See Something, Say Something campaign was very upfront in the community's consciousness over the last several years, but we want to reinforce that. And if you see something that looks out of the ordinary, always give the Sheriff's Department a call. Also, would you give the number again for the Homicide Bureau in case anybody has specific information regarding this particular case?
Yes, 323-890-5500. Or if you wish to remain anonymous, you can go on the Crime Stoppers website and report a tip.
Okay, the next question again has to do with the specifics of the attack, and the question is there any reason to believe that the crime was committed elsewhere and that the victim was taken to the promenade parking structure?
And again, I'm not going to comment where we believe the crime took place specifically, in or outside the car, around the car, but we do believe that the crime occurred inside of the parking structure itself.
Again, the question, and this may be as a result of people coming online in the middle of the discussion here, and we do appreciate the fact that you're here. We're trying our best to make sure that all the answers get, all the questions get answered, even if the answer is we can't really release that information. So again, I'll ask the question for the department to comment on for those of you new to the presentation, and that is, has the person of interest been released at this time?
The person of interest has been released from the Sheriff's Department custody. However, he is receiving suitable treatment at a facility.
Okay, so while we are hearing that there is really nothing new to report from the latest official releases from the department, you can see that there is a lot of action going on behind the scenes. Is there an opportunity in the near future for the public to hear some official update on what the status of the case is? Do we have any clue as to when that might be?
Well, my job is to make sure that the information or evidence is not prematurely exposed. I'm not thinking about today or necessarily tomorrow. I'm trying to forecast what's best for the case a year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, and how that information could be detrimental to the overall success of the case. We want to make sure that we give the victim's family and the victim the best chance at justice, and also the suspect or suspects to have a fair trial. We don't want to try them in the media, per se. So I know it's frustrating for community members not to get all the information at one time. However, we will try to provide some information, whatever we can, at specific times during the course of the investigation.
I really appreciate that response. The question of justice for the victim and her family is paramount in all of our minds, and the care with which the department is taking the steps to find evidence, hold evidence, make investigations, I think just reinforces our confidence in the fact that we have an outstanding department working on behalf of this community, and the partnership that we have with them is a tremendous asset to the peninsula. We will just ask another question because we're getting lots about this particular angle, and that is, was the victim specifically targeted, or does this seem more a random act?
I don't want to comment on that motive.
Okay, we do appreciate all that. At this point, it looks as though some of the questions have started to dry up. We'll wait here just for a moment or two to see if we get some more questions while we're waiting for anything to come across from the online audience. It seems as most of the questions we're getting right now are repeats of previous ones. So maybe at this point it might be helpful just to restate the status of the investigation and some of the points that were made early by the folks from the department, so that those who came on late can get the benefit of that information as well. And Captain, maybe we'll start with you and maybe just give sort of a recap of the initial discussion that took place here.
Yeah, first of all, obviously the sensitive nature of these type of investigations, it's paramount for the integrity of the case, and I apologize that we can't share more information. However, we understand the community is concerned, and I assure you that we will partner with the community to restore the feeling of safety here on the peninsula through our deputies. They're as Doug said, they're part of the fabric of this community, and many of them have been at our station for years and know and live in the area. So everyone is deeply affected by this, and again, my condolences to the family.
Not only that, the deputies here that work at Lomita Station are here because they live in the community, they live around the community, they have a deep feeling for the community. Lomita Station is unique in that deputies come to the station and they stay. It's a great place to work, and they have been shaken too. This is something that they do take personally, and they do take to heart. They feel terrible for the family, they feel bad for the community, and the community needs to know that the sheriff is committing all the resources necessary and all the appropriate resources to bring this to a quick resolution.
I personally have known the handling detectives for several years now. I'm very confident in their ability to bring this case to a resolution. They have, like the commander stated, they have all the tools at their disposal. They are utilizing those tools. There are a multitude of leads that they are following up on, and they are working tirelessly to run down those leads, identify a suspect, and bring that suspect to justice.
Thank you. And this is another question regarding the police presence in the area. So, Captain, perhaps you can go in a little more detail about the increase in the patrol presence that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, as I stated, I've directed our area cars to focus on this area in their patrol time, to have a visible presence. My administrative staff and detective staff have been in the area in uniform, and just to have that presence. And if there's any information that comes out that there is a credible threat, we will share that with the community immediately and apply the resources we need to alleviate the threat.
This is I think a good question and perhaps a suggestion that might help with the investigation, and that is a description of what the victim was wearing the day she was attacked and murdered, so that if anyone saw anything up at the mall at that time related to someone fitting her description, if they might be able to provide information to the investigators. So do we know, or can you release the information with respect to what she was wearing that day?
We'll put that out on social media site. Let me research so I don't misquote or misstate exactly what she had on. I certainly wouldn't want to put out misinformation. That could be very harming to this investigation.
That's a great question, and as the lieutenant said, that will be put out in the next day or two, I would imagine,
yes,
requesting additional information and help from the community. The other thing that is along the same lines has to do with the time frame for which the department is looking for potential witnesses. Do we have a time frame, or is that something that you should also include in that request for help from the public?
We are looking at a time frame anywhere between 10 a.m. and 12:30.
So 10 a.m. to 12:30. So if anybody who was in the area at that time saw something suspicious, they should contact the Homicide Bureau. And again, give the homicide number, please.
And first of all, that time frame, that restate the date, is Thursday, May 3rd, 2018. And homicide's number, again, is 323-890-5500.
Is there any reason to believe that this crime is connected to any other types of crimes that have occurred on the peninsula? I think we've addressed that, but it's worth repeating.
Yes, we don't have any information that this crime is related to any other.
And again, with respect to the investigation, is there any reason to believe that there may have been more than one attacker?
It is unknown how many suspects there were.
Okay, with that, I believe we're coming close to the end of our discussion here. What I'd like to do at this point is have the mayor maybe make some closing remarks. And again, I do wish to thank the department personnel who are here and been a part of this. We also thank the community as well. Your interest in this case shows what a tight and close community we have up here. When a crime occurs, there's not one victim, the whole peninsula is a victim. So with that, Mayor, please make some closing comments, and then we'll wrap this up.
Yes, well, first of all, thank you all so much for joining us for this Facebook live stream, and especially for your questions and your interest. As was mentioned, even though this appears to be an isolated incident, this crime highlights the need to remain vigilant in our community. And we again emphasize the importance of getting involved in your neighborhood watch programs and proactively communicating with the Sheriff's Department when you identify any concerns. And we know it's frustrating to not hear a resolution here tonight, but I think it's encouraging to all of us to hear that this investigation is very actively going on, and that our efforts here tonight are to try to just show us a transparency in dealing with this issue. So you can stay up to date on all city matters by visiting our website or following the city on Facebook and other electronic media. And to stay updated on this particular crime, you can visit the rhe.city/crime update. And we will post that link in the comments section of the Facebook Live stream after this. And again, we want to thank Captain Berenger and all of you for joining us this evening and in an effort to bring you up to date, and that this is a very active investigation going on. We also want to thank again our County Sheriff, Jim McDonnell, and his investigators for making the solving of this crime and the continued safety of our community their highest priority. So we greatly appreciate everyone's efforts. We'll continue to update our community as the facts and developments unfold. And so we thank you for joining us, and good night to all of you.